This is the Pro Wrasslin Reflection Podcast with your host, the Professor Chalbello Veracruz.
What a run!
Mr. Wonderful Tommy Wonder.
And I will take the powers of those that have no fear!
And the prodigal one, JB.
The cream, yeah. The cream of the crop.
Now it's time to go back in time in the time machine.
The American Dream! Nasty Road! Too sweet!
The living legend, Bruno Sammartino.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. Woo! Look at this. He's I don't believe it. After 20 years, it's all coming to an end. ECW is over. Tonight on the final episode, ECW will go to the extreme one last time. Christian will defend the ECW Championship against Ezekiel Jackson under Extreme Rules. It's the final episode of ECW tonight.
I heard you've been looking for me, but you look for trouble. You're gonna see that your words are dangerous. Your talk is cheap. I'm standing here, still standing here. Don't question my heart, still standing here. Don't question the fire that burns inside.
What is going on there, Reflectionites? What is going on, Big Vitoites on the Twitch? What is going on to the Big Vitoites on the Patreons? The Big Vito brand. It's Big Vito brand, and it's the PWR Networks at Podbean.com. We are the synergy. We are the partnership. We are the nucleus in the Podbeans. We are the nucleus in the podcasting world, if you will. And I am that man. I am that scholarly one. I am that effervescent one. But most importantly, I am the glorious one. The only objective man in the IWC, YWC. The only objective man in politics. The only objective man in movies. The only objective man in your mom's bedroom. I am that man, the Professor Chalbello Cruz, welcoming you to the PWR podcast here at the PWR Networks at Podbean.com. And I just heard a big breath. That's a big breath of fresh air right there. Well, I don't know. I mean, in Detroit, the air quality in Detroit is not like the air quality in Bombay, where you could sniff, you could smell it. You can smell the daisies. I don't know what you smell in Detroit, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway. It is the PWR podcast, and you know what, Reflectionites, since it's been, we've done episodes that coincide February, that coincide March, that's going to coincide April. I figure we're going to do an episode that's 11 years in the making. I wanted to do an episode that, merges the 2010s with the 2020s, and you'll get it when you know what we're talking about. We are going to be, I don't want to call the word celebrating Reflectionites and Big Vitoites, but we're going to be talking in detail about the last WWECW show on the Sci-Fi network from February of 2010. Yes, Travis Bolt, you kind of, you always egg on me about my old school rules. It is 11 years old, Travis. Number one. Yeah. You are so right, TW. But it is old school in definition. But it is very important to talk about this, Reflectionites. It is very important, and we will get into that in great detail. But before that, I must introduce my Gorilla Monsoon, my Lord Alfred Hayes, my Jesse Ventura, my Bobby the Brain Heenan. I'm trying to be nice here, TW, but you're the Hulk Hogan? You're the racist Hulk Hogan too? Oh, I don't know.
That's new. It's Jet Magazine. That's Reggie.
Oh, you're Reggie? You Reginald?
Reggie. Boomerang.
Okay. He is all that and a bag of chips, ladies. He's the idiot of the dumb duos. He's the iron stomach. He's the conservative liberal. He is your friend and mine, Mr. TW, Mr. Wonderful Tommy Wonder. How are you doing, my friend? And what were you holding up? I saw the NWO side on the back for the big Vitoites again.
The Ultimate Edition Hulk Hogan.
Oh,
that's the expensive one.
Wait,
I don't have a Hulk Hogan figure.
I saw two heads there. So it's like a Mr. Potato Head? Oh, I'm sorry, Potato Head?
It's two heads. It's actually three heads. He's wearing one where he's smiling, he's wearing one where he's yelling, and the other one where he's making that smirk where he plays the guitar.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
And then I also have this one because I don't have any Finn Balor figures. So I got that bad boy. It was cheap. And I figured if I'm going to have a Finn Balor figure, I'm going to have the demon Finn Balor because that's the best version of Finn Balor. Otherwise,
that's debatable.
He's just the CWC light heavyweight champion who's stuck in the UK. What's that guy's name?
Walter?
No, the cruiserweight champion over there.
Oh, Jordan Devlin.
Yes, Jordan Balor Jr. because they look the same. But anyhow, because we're in transition season here. It's 50 degrees here. It was 60 earlier. I'm in my basement, in the dungeon, in my 50 Shades of action figure room and Funko Pops. But the furnace hasn't kicked on yet because I don't have it set to kick on because it's warm enough without it. What I have it set at, but I'm still freezing. And
the 50 Shades of Wonder. That's what it is.
Yeah, 50 Shades of hot pink.
It puts the lotion on in its skin, but that's for the ladies. I'm warning you, ladies. When you go to the 50 Shades of Wonder, just remember, get the lotion. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Reflectionites and Big Vitoites. Again, TW, I wanted to pick the last episode of WWE ECW from Sci Fi Network for a multitude of reasons. And one of the biggest reasons is we will enjoy the episode. We will rank on the episode. We will say what was wrong with the episode. But in retrospect, TW, I mean, the business has changed from the last episode of ECW on Sci-Fi Network to 2020 Wonder. Because look at what happened with the business at hand. You know, at the end of the WWE ECW show, we still had TNA chugging along. We have Ring of Honor chugging along. Combat Zone Wrestling, PWG. The Indies are picking up steam. New Japan Pro Wrestling is picking up steam. The WWE Network is not in existence yet, but WWE is trying to, like, you know, get its hands on those indie darlings, if you will, with the creation of the FCW, the Florida Championship Wrestling, and of course, because this is the last episode of WWE ECW, they are going to introduce to the masses NXT. And then 10 years later, we got AEW, TW. So the business from this episode to now, TW, has changed wonders. What say you about that?
It's funny because when you watch it, you know, yeah, Travis is going to say, that's not long ago enough. But it makes you look at the TV and go, whoa. That means all these guys, Ryback, who's here today, gone today because he's really nothing anymore, wasn't anything there either. He was the least popular guy of the NXT guy, Skip Sheffield. Well, maybe Michael Tarver. But anyway, you're like, holy hell, these guys been there 11 years. Wade Barrett left and came back now. He's back again now. But this is funny, and I think it's part of the reason you picked it, is we could easily call this AECW because literally almost each segment has a guy that either is in recently an AEW signed guy or someone that's been there since they started or very, very soon after. I learned something. This is literally the month February. I had gotten back in the ring a month earlier than that in January of 2010 for the first time in over 4 years, or just under 4 years. Just over 4 years that I had been out of the wrestling business and got back in. So maybe that's why I didn't watch it. But none of this was familiar to me. None of it. Especially, it starts off with AEW's big surprise, Christian as the ECW World Champion. Didn't even know that happened. Had no idea Christian was ECW champion.
He was going into this last episode, Reflection Nights and Big Vito Whites of WWE ECW as the ECW Heavyweight Champion, and the main event was an ECW street fight for the title. He was defending it against Ezekiel Jackson. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes, Reflection Nights. But again, we got to correlate the past with the present. You said it. Big Show is in this episode of ECW. He was one half of the tag team champions along with the awesome Miz, the former WWE champion who got destroyed by the almighty Bobby Lashley, here today, gone today. And of course, Christian himself, being the ECW champion, is the newest signee to All Elite Wrestling, TW. And, I want to put it this way too. I'm going to say this because you know me, I'm the objective man here, and I have a bone to pick with you because you have said this on the History of PWR podcasts. So we might have a little debate before we even talk about this. I can't fault people like Paul White. I can't fault people like Christian to, sign with a competitor. It's business, first of all. But you always say that, don't bite the hand that feeds you. But we don't know the politics. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes. If you work somewhere and you ask your boss, let's just say, hypothetically, you work at a shoe store, you work at McDonald's. Well, let's use McDonald's because it's easier. You go to your manager at McDonald's and say, I'm making $14 an hour. Can I get a bump up to $16 an hour? But then Wendy's comes at you. The manager of Wendy's says, we're going to pay you $18 an hour and make you an assistant manager. That's simple mathematics, and that's simple titles. I might shit on McDonald's for not giving me the opportunity that I thought I deserved there, but you always say don't bite the hand that feeds you. But there's always going to be a little emotion, TW. Not to bite the hand, but, to have the emotion say, you never really appreciated me. You're not rewarding for all the hard work, the dedication, the blood, sweat, and tears. What say you, TW, about this little debate we're going to have?
Well, here we go. I'm glad you brought this up because
the
guys you just mentioned did no such thing as biting the hand that feeds. Because although it looked like Big Show was, I'm sure he had nothing to do with those T-shirts. Already bad taste. Done with the BS or whatever, out with the BS, which was shot.
No more BS. No more BS.
Which was a multifaceted shot at the WWE saying it's BS, but it's a pun because of Big Show. But Big Show in interviews has been nothing but kind things to say about the WWE. He even just said Vince called him and wished him well and said he would be a great addition to AEW. So that I respect. Christian, on the other hand, there's nothing other than, of course, he even said he had no idea they were pushing him this way. They're the ones making the shot at the Hall of Fame and all that garbage. And Christian said every second of the talks with the WWE were cordial. It just wasn't going anywhere. And then he thought he was doing himself a disservice if he didn't at least reach out and see what his other options were. He wants to wrestle all the time. This is Macho Man all over again. I never faulted Macho Man. Matter of fact, when Macho Man went to WCW, I was mad at the WWF when I found out the reason he did it is because Vince wouldn't let him wrestle anymore, and he wanted to wrestle. So in that regard, but he didn't go down there and start burying the WWF. He just went down there and got paid and wrestled like he wanted to do, and that's what I hope Christian and Big Show did.
But I have to retort back. The Macho Man started, when he went into NWO Heavy, he did kind of pot shots against Vince McMahon.
Well, guess what came first? Guess what came first? The Macho Man and the Huckster. That's what came first.
The chicken and the egg. I know. I get the old sentiment.
Back. There's a difference when you're firing back. But then you got someone like Cody Rhodes, who's, somebody would have done something with him just for having the name Rhodes. But I don't care what anybody. I only know who Cody Rhodes is. A, because he was at his dad's Hall of Fame induction. He was a little kid there. And B, he was Cody Rhodes in the WWE. He was teaming with Ted DiBiase Jr. I liked him there. I didn't like him with the stupid mustache, and he didn't wear knee pads. It was dashing Cody Rhodes, whatever the hell that was. I hated the Phantom of the Opera. He's a terrible talker. I don't care what anybody says.
I love the dashing gimmick. It was great.
But I loved Stardust. I thought it was genius because it was with Goldust, And yes, they teamed for a little bit, but then they feuded and all that. By the way, Big Show and Miz took on Goldust. So there's also Goldust, who's whatever the hell he's called in ECW or AEW, Red Dust, half Red Dust.
No,
but
Dustin Rhodes
has been nothing but bitter and angry towards the WWE because they didn't give, just like, I was talking about something else modern. All day long, I heard about how awesome this Peyton Royce Raw Talk thing was. And then I watched it. It fucking wasn't awesome. It was absolutely it wasn't from the hip. It was absolutely
predetermined.
She prepared to do it, and it looked like she was trying to make herself emotional. My biggest gripe, I get it. Some guys want to get used better. I get it. Who wouldn't want to be? But some of these people have gotten a chance to do whatever and floundered because they didn't get over. And she's one of them. And for her to say she's 98% better than 98% of the women wrestlers is laughable because her and Peyton Royce, first tag team champions, or did they win them?
They were the second women's tag team champions behind
Sasha and
Bailey.
And Bailey. So they had their chance in the sun and did nothing with it. And so when Cody Rhodes got as high as he got in the WWE, because that's as high as he could go. If people don't buy your shit, you ain't going higher. You're just not. Look at Zack Ryder. He got himself over with those YouTube videos. Then they finally put him on TV and they're doing whatever. Wah, wah. Just because some people just can't do it. They can't. Once they get the opportunity, they can't do it. And it happens so fast that the casual fan doesn't realize they got an opportunity. They just squandered it. And then everyone's like, oh, you didn't let them do it long enough. No, they stumbled out the gate and there's no recovery.
And that's the beauty of alternatives, TW. That's the beauty.
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about
Drew
AEW.
McIntyre.
No, right. Drew McIntyre went all around the world and came back home, you could say. And then he is where he is right now in the main event scene. But this is like, for WWE ECW, this was what it's supposed to be. What NXT is today, this was supposed to be ECW. It was to get the young guys over. It was to get a reboot for certain guys on the main roster that were kind of, as you said, floundering. But the problem, Reflectionites and TW here, is that ECW was so watered down with the corporate structure that it didn't feel right. It never felt original to us. And that's why us original ECW marks like myself, we trashed it. We trashed ECW's, or the WWE ECW at the Hammerstein. We forced WWE's hand never to come back to the Hammerstein Ballroom because we did not want this presentation. Again, I understand the realities, TW. It is Vince McMahon's money. It's Vince McMahon's resources. So he's going to have a say in what ECW is supposed to be. I didn't like it, so I'm just the consumer. That's the only way I could express myself. So I was glad that this was the last episode of ECW on Sci-Fi. So when you look at the first match and look at who was there, they had a WWE Tag Team title match. It wasn't an ECW Tag Team title match. It was the unified WWE
traveling belts.
They're traveling belts. It's just like Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler doing what they're doing on 3 brands. It's fine. It's a fine concept. But when you're talking to an ECW guy, there was an ECW tag team tradition. There were the Eliminators. There was the Gangsters. There was the Dudleys. There was the FBI. There was Yoshihiro Tajiri and Super Crazy. I'm giving you tag teams like the Yin Yang, TW. And we get a WWE Tag Team Championship match to start with. Big Show and The Miz. I forgot the tag team. Was it Awesome Show against Yoshitatsu? I forgot he even existed. And Goldust.
He's the one that AJ crippled with the damn AJ Styles move.
Yeah, I remember in New Japan, but I was like, when I looked at this episode, this was like, wow, I forgot Yoshitatsu was in the fucking.
He looked good. He looked good in that match, though. He looked good in there. He did some cool stuff.
Yoshitatsu was supposed to be that future in ECW, TW. So when you look at the parameters here, forget about the match itself. We'll talk about it in a second. But look where Miz has been. 2010. He started the decade, people were clowning The Miz, and it's almost like night and day. It's still the same argument about The Miz. He works too soft. He works safe. He works smart. Whatever you want to call that as a as a criticism, I call that smart. If you're going to be in the wrestling business for these many years and your worst injury is probably like a hangnail, I'm applauding The Miz, saying you did good. You're getting a 6-figure salary, TW, and the biggest injury of your career in the WWE is a hangnail, TW. What say you about The Miz from 2010 to 2021?
Ironic, because I met him on my last night in wrestling in '05 at the Survivor Series, and then here he is the very year that I got back. He's the U.S. champ and has both tag belts because they're unified, beating DX 8 days earlier. And he's silly. He's a guy who's reinvented his look. He's pretty much had the same one for a while now with that A-lister gimmick, but he is the opposite of the finger or biting the hand that feeds you guy, right? This guy has his own TV show with his wife. I don't know what it draws for ratings, but he's grateful, which is my favorite thing in a human being. He's, as Travis calls, a good hand. He does what they need him to do. And I just read today something. The reason they chose him to be the champion the way they did and give it to Bobby Lashley is because they want Lashley to be chased by Drew when they finally have fans again. So rather than put it on like, say, Sheamus beats Drew for it and then Lashley beats him a week later, that makes Sheamus look goofy. It already looks goofy. So it doesn't hurt him to win the belt and lose it a week later. It doesn't hurt him at all because he wasn't someone in the title picture and he had the briefcase to do it. Didn't he beat Otis for the briefcase? Like he took it from Otis, right? He took it from Otis in a match, thanks to Tucker. So all of it was nice chicanery that does nothing but make you love to hate The Miz more. I think his downfall for me is he openly calls himself a pussy in interviews. Like he says, I'm not a tough guy. He shouldn't. He's built, I mean, he's in just as good a shape today as he is in 2010 in this video, you know, when we're watching the NXT or ECW transition. My only problem with this episode is it felt like a funeral, and a bad one at that, because they're the only mention of ECW really by the commentators is that this is it. And then Christian does a promo where he says it's done forever. And for one of the few things in wrestling, it has been done forever, because it's 11 years and 1 month later, and there's still been no resurrection of ECW. However,
it was done forever in 2001. We don't even acknowledge this ECW.
It's just all they did was push the NXT starting the week later, which I actually forgot was a weekly show. It just aired, like, they used to record SmackDown on Tuesdays from 8 to 10, and then live at 10 would be the NXT from the same arena SmackDown was at, which is risky. They did that with the Cruiserweight show and finally bumped it to where it was recorded before Raw instead of after it, because you'd have people there till midnight watching wrestling. And when I was at Raw, when they actually was SmackDown too, when I was at SmackDown in Detroit, as soon as SmackDown ended, half the people left, and the arena was half full for the what the hell is that show called? The Cruiserweight show.
The 205 Live.
205 Live. So for 205 Live, they had to change it to recording before Raw so that you had fans there, because so many people left that it looked abandoned for the damn...
They wanted to get home. They got to go to work. Yeah.
Well, no, because SmackDown ended at 10 p.m., so they figured 10 to 11 is the same as being there for Raw. Raw was 8 to 11. So,
when you're talking to a man who goes to the arenas and has to take a train, that 10 o'clock means something more than taking 11 o'clock and getting home at 1 or... Yeah.
But I'm telling you, their logic was Raw ends at 11:05, so why can't SmackDown end at 11:05 with a bonus Cruiserweight show, you know? But people literally left. I stuck around because I wanted to see some of it, and I just thought, wow, this isn't going to last long. That was 2 years ago, and it's still going. I don't know how, but they still do it.
Well, with no fans, no fans by the grace of God.
Right. I think that's what they're going to do is once fans start coming back, they're going to keep doing that Cruiserweight show in Florida.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. So again, we talked about The Miz here, and of course the Miz and Big Show were the tag team champions. The awesome show. Let's talk about the other guy in as the challenger. We talk about Yoshitatsu. You mentioned that his neck was broken by AJ Styles in New Japan Pro Wrestling in like 2015, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that, Donnie, because I try to be the professor, but I can't remember the dates. But there's another guy in here who is still wrestling. And he's like, I think he's 53 years old, give or take. I'm just being nice here, TW, but he looks better right now than he did back then. And that's the natural Dustin Rhodes, a.k.a. Goldust. And again, you talked about Cody biting the hand that feeds you. Maybe Dustin feels like he wanted to contribute, but he did not want to contribute the only way to be like that coach at the Performance Center. Maybe not only having the wrestling school, TW, which is a money-making business, don't get me wrong, but I think he felt like, I think he had that, maybe this is the way I'm looking at it as a fan. See if you agree or disagree with this. A lot of guys who get in this business has the Terry Funk mindset. You get a little bit older, but Terry Funk still was on TV just enough, bear with me, just enough to say, I can make that guy and have value in that. That's the way he felt that he could still contribute. Terry Funk, Tommy Dreamer, with that mentality, the older I get, the only value I have is not only to put the younger guy over, but to still have a meaningful storyline. What say you, TW, about that assessment with Dustin Rhodes?
I'm going to be mean for a second because Terry Funk is a good example of what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. But other guys are doing it because they didn't save their money. They're still wrestling because they have no other way to make money. And that's just
like I said, we have different perspectives of how we see it. I respect that.
Dustin, I think, and I don't think he's ever been bitter towards the WWE since he left. I think everyone understood what he wanted to do. He wanted to help his brother, and he went there and he did it. He's proud of his brother and all that. And I had the only thing I do take some umbrage with is umbrage, whatever that word is. Remember the promo he did as Zero or whatever, Domino, whatever he was, where he was pissed because he came back to WCW to beat Dustin Rhodes and they made him 7. Yes. And he just goes off on it. Well, back to WWE, and I disagree with you. I think he looks awesome now, but I think he looked awesome in 2010. In 2010 was when he came back in that Royal Rumble, and everyone thought it was a one-off, and he ended up being there for another 8 years and looked great. He looked better in 10 than he did in the 90s when he was trying to get a free implant out of Vince McMahon, breast implants. But
right.
I think Dustin and Terry Funk, I think, love the business. I think Dustin's a good example of what you said, but specifically his brother he wanted to help. And I don't think anyone was surprised when he asked for his release and got it and wrestled Cody. Was it All In that he
Double or Nothing.
Okay, so the second one. So, and that was the first AEW one, right?
Yes.
And so I don't think anyone's surprised by that or upset by that. And I think when he does hang him up, I think Dustin is going in the WWE Hall of Fame. I 100% believe that. I think Christian is still going in, but I think he's put himself out a few years by doing what he did. I think Jericho's going to get Macho Man. I think he's probably going to be dead before he goes in there because unlike when he first signed there 2 years ago, he is bad as Cody Rhodes at bashing the WWF now. Just with every new signee, he talks about how they disrespected them in the WWE and how here we're all the same and they're not this, it's not that. And so I think
but that's the gimmick, TW. That's the gimmick of social media.
2 years ago.
But don't you want to live the gimmick?
People 2 years ago?
What was that?
People AEW was going to be around in a year that he went there because he couldn't turn down the money and Vince wouldn't take the match. So
right. So
yeah, he's still there now. I guess he's being commentator, so he must be ready to phase out and wrestle less.
Who knows?
But I get it. And Travis tried saying this to me yesterday because Cody's latest shit talk is, oh well, after we pounced him or destroyed NXT for a year, then they're moving to Tuesday night. That could open up a window for us. First of all, winning by 100,000 people who, P.S., I still have never been asked by Nielsen what's on my TV, so I don't even know where they get these numbers. They're all guesses. And they've lost a few times. So to say destroyed, Travis says he's working. No, he's not. He's a bitter son of a bitch. And you know what I want Cody to do? I want Cody to switch Dynamite to Monday or Friday. Take your pick. I want you to do there and then see what the ratings are head-to-head. And the fact that it takes the shots at NXT when half the people in NXT, the casual fan has no idea who they are any more than they know who AEW guys are.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it. I hate it. I'm really liking Kenny Omega more and more because when he's asked questions, he says stuff like, I think Triple H is open to the idea of working with us if the situation was right. He's trying to build a bridge to WWE. Where
trying to build
Cody's
that rapport.
Yeah.
Trying to build the rapport.
Kenny Omega's got the better process of making a better wrestling world, if you will. I just don't like the pettiness and the cattiness any more than I like Nacho Man and Huckster. Obviously, I wasn't doing a podcast when that stuff was going on, but I thought that was tacky. I didn't have a problem with the new Diesel and the new Razor Ramon. I feel bad for those guys because it was not received well, but one of those guys is still around, and that's Kane. So, and the other guy, you could tell he wasn't long for the business to begin with, but I thought it was funny. If they wouldn't have tried to put off as serious and try to make them dominant,
you do what you're told, TW, and
right.
They were booked that way, and they did. And Kane,
I'm saying if Vince would have done it better and made it, but then again, Nacho Man and Huckster and $1 Billion whatever was comedy, but it was insulting. You know what I mean? It wasn't funny. It was bitter.
But of course, it was a good tool to use and good material for the creation of the NWO. So he gave him feeding. He gave him a feeder for it. So
Billionaire's head, yeah.
Now, TW, you want to talk about this tag team title extravaganza match between Awesome Show and Yoshitatsu and Goldust. You know, again, the last ECW show, the funeral of WWE ECW. And my question here out of at least this match here, and actually for the roster of ECW as TW is fighting off mosquitoes and flies in his basement.
Cobweb.
A cobweb. I got to thinking when I looked at Yoshitatsu here, you know, again, ECW was the C brand behind, you know, SmackDown and Raw being the A show and B shows respectively. But people like Yoshitatsu, people like Shelton Benjamin, people like Ezekiel Jackson, are you snoring while your eyes are open?
No, I'll scratch my back. And don't forget one-legged Zack Ryder with Heather Mills pants on.
Well, his name wasn't Ryder, but I get I forgot his name. Zach Galifianakis or something like that. But anyway.
No.
His name wasn't. No, that's not Zack Ryder.
Yes, it is.
Zack Ryder's woo woo woo.
The one that came out and attacked Christian in the match is Zack Ryder.
Oh, who cares?
Did you not watch it?
That was William Regal.
No, William Regal was the manager of Ezekiel. And
yeah, I know.
Zach came out with, what's that crazy chick? Mendoza. Something with Mendoza.
Was it Mendoza or Rosa Mendez?
Yeah, that one. Mendoza.
Yeah,
Rosa
I can't keep up with everybody.
That was Zack Ryder. He had the one-legged pants. They remember because he was part of the Edgeheads, and then they split them up, and he went to ECW as Zack Ryder.
No, but again, the question here is those people were needed. This was the platform. ECW was that platform for the C-listers to get the shine. And there was nothing after that because then you would have to go to catering for SmackDown. You have to go to catering for Raw because you weren't going to be used. That was the problem here.
Or you'd be doing jobs.
Or you'd be doing jobs.
For them to fight and be competitive.
Or you'd be doing house shows where that's the only value you have left to get money here. So what say you about this tag team title extravaganza here, TW?
I say we talked about it way too long, but I will say this.
We didn't even talk about anything.
Yeah, we talked about Big Show. We talked about Miz. We talked about Goldust. We talked about
the match.
We weren't going to talk about matches, you said. But the bottom line is, you said Yoshi was the future. Miz pins Goldust, and that protects Yoshi. So you're absolutely right. And this was the whole point of this tag match it was those guys who were the World Tag Team Champions unified. We're defending them against two ECW guys, and those ECW guys were Goldust and Yatsi Toshu, whatever the hell his name was.
Yoshitatsu. Get it right.
Yeah,
Get it right.
It. Yeah, Yoshitatsu. And they won, as expected, but Yoshi didn't get pinned. Yoshi was shining in the match, other than that big open hand chop Big Show gave him. And he was a hot tag.
His theme song was very, bad. You know, it wasn't that...
It was 8-bit Nintendo music is what it was.
It was that for all the Reflectionites who watch New Japan and like Stardom, that theme song of Yoshitatsu is Japanese women's wrestling theme songs. That's how bad it was. They gave it to Yoshitatsu, so it wasn't like Nakamura. If Yoshitatsu got Nakamura's theme song in 2010, maybe Yoshitatsu would have been on SmackDown. You agree or disagree?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And when they absorbed those guys, Yoshi started wearing half face paint and it was like a combination of Tatanka and
I forgot what they did with Yoshi. I remember you talking about there was a face paint.
Young blood. They made him like a young blood. There was like a few young guys that were they were kind of sticking together, but they already in the ring and they would get beaten. Basically what happened.
It was like here today, gone today. But again, it was a no mean nothing tag team title match because it wasn't for the ECW Tag Team Championships. It was the WWE Unified Tag Team Championships, so it did not matter. So my favorite segment for me, Reflectionites and Big Vitoites out there on the Patreons and the Twitches, and I'm not trying to shill here, but was the Abraham Washington talk show with Abraham Washington and Mr. USA Tony Atlas, the man who saved, well, you call him Saba Simba, but he's Superman Tony Atlas, the man that saved the Abraham Washington talk show, TW. Again, this is a great example. I forgot about Abraham Washington. I forgot about these segments because it was ECW. But Tony Atlas, this is a great example of Tony Atlas. You talked about Saba Simba. Again, Tony Atlas, if people don't remember Reflectionites and Big Vitoites out there was an MTV special. Tony Atlas had a rough life, but he was wrestling is the only thing he knows. He hustled when he wrestled. He went town to town. He went town to town, and God bless him in 2021. He does podcasting. He got a comfortable living. So, but back then, if you saw that MTV special, this man was living in a one-bedroom apartment, and he did not know where his next money, his next $100 was going to come from unless he did a show. And Vince McMahon, if you're loyal to Vince McMahon will give you something. And this is a great example of Vince McMahon giving Tony Atlas something because Tony Atlas is loyal to Vince McMahon. And you talk about, keeping the good graces, TW. Tony Atlas, any podcast, any kayfabe commentary I've ever heard in my life on YouTube, he has praised Vince McMahon. And Vince McMahon ain't even paying him. What say you about Tony Atlas?
It's my favorite quality, gratitude, because that guy knows what it's like pre-Vince McMahon, and post-Vince McMahon. I'm sure he's probably got some kind of legends thing because he pops up from time to time on WWE stuff. I don't know if it's a steady contract, but I'm assuming you were saying he had that show air on MTV and Vince saw it and was like, oh, let's give this dude a job because that's not how Tony Atlas should be living.
Actually, he didn't because that came out in 99 or 2000 at the height of the popularity of the Monday Night Wars. It was just one of those sad MTV documentaries, and Tony Atlas was just focused on that.
I remember it. And I think I remember he had the old phone with the little wire, the ring, and he was like hoping the phone call was something good. But I've always felt in everything I've ever seen of Tony Atlas, he's been a humble, grateful person. Like, even in down times, he somehow makes it through. He's in that, and maybe it wasn't the MTV thing. Maybe it was Beyond the Mat that I saw him with that. Because I think he had a drug problem for a minute there. I'm not entirely certain, but I've heard stories of him having drug issues on shows when he was doing indies and stuff like that. But
maybe steroids. I didn't hear drugs. I thought I heard steroids.
But that's the thing. It's the same thing with music. The wrestling life is very similar to the music life, right? For everybody that makes it, there's hundreds that don't. Like literally, this guy made it, 100 other guys didn't. And so when you have people that go all in, like I didn't particularly get a lot from the Sasha Banks Broken Skulls thing because I almost feel like it's 50-50. Like it's hard to have sympathy for someone when you know they're cousins with Snoop Dogg, but then you find out he really didn't help her until after she started doing stuff. So she did fight for her stuff, but she's still young yet. So I think there's not a lot of struggle, if you will. But she said on that interview she had no plan B. And yeah, you hear that a lot from people that make it. But there's people who had no plan B that didn't make it. And so drugs are what they do because you don't realize you're hungry and cold when you're high. And that's why. So people, first of all, they start doing drugs because they're doing well, making some money wrestling.
The excess makes them do that.
Right. And then they ain't making that money no more and have an addiction. And like my favorite stand-up of all time is Chris Porter, Ugly and Angry. And he says when he gets older, he's trying every drug. When he's 70 years old, he's trying every drug. He goes, because think about it. No one's going to be at my funeral if I died of overdose in my 70s. They're going to be there, he's good. He's good. He's 70 years old. He had a good run. He's like, because he goes, I smoke weed. He goes, I smoke weed. He goes, but I still pay my bills. He goes, people on heroin, they're like, fuck it. I don't need a house. I don't need to eat. And that's what drugs are. And a lot of it is an escape. So I get, I have some empathy for people that get hooked on drugs because I grew up around it. Like, I think I said this to you on the show before. I watched my buddy's big brother turn into a male prostitute on Finkel in Detroit because he got hooked on crack. And it's one of the saddest things you ever see because if he's your buddy's big brother, he's almost like your big brother when you're a kid. And next you know, you see him on the corner selling his ass, and you're like, wow. And for me, grade 5, I promised myself I was never doing drugs because some of the stuff they showed us at school for the DARE program.
And not talk about your big brother, but some people selling their asses are dirty. They don't clean it.
No, and I'm sure he didn't either because
I know
the priority was getting drugs, and they consume you or whatever. So that's why I like when you hear stories of people who kick it. But you aren't going to kick it alone. You need people to help you, and that's why. I see people all the time on the corner, and I just think, damn, man, they ran out of family. They ran out of friends because my family and friends, I would hope, would see me on that corner and swoop me up and do whatever the fuck they had to do to get me not to be on that corner. And but some people were only children and never had family to begin with. I don't know how I got on this tangent, but anyways, my point is I think Tony Atlas has the gratitude because he's been down. And he knows who helped him up. And to me, I would think that means that Vince McMahon, as much as he's the most bashed guy on the internet in the wrestling community, I think he's grateful for people who have done things for him. And one of my favorite things ever is the hug that Vince McMahon and the Ultimate Warrior had before he went out on that stage for the you could see the relief in both of them that they were hugging, if that makes any sense, because that was quite a few years of bad blood there. And to have that much bad blood means there had to have been some good blood at once upon a time. And you see that. And so I like seeing guys who, and again, I'm not saying toe the company line. If they treat you wrong, you don't have the right to go bash them. But all these people that I'm talking about that bash the WWF are people that got treated awesome. They didn't get treated bad, right?
We don't, again,
Yoshitatsu could be somewhere talking shit and I'd be okay with it because I don't know that he got a fair shake. You know what I mean? Whereas other guys, you've won every title they've had and you've won them twice and then you're going to leave and say they used you wrong? Come on, man. Come on.
To each his own, but like we said, Tony Atlas, a very humble dude, and again, he was there as the Ed McMahon to Abraham Washington, and again, being the last ECW episode here, Abraham Washington wanted the greatest guest that he could get, and Vince McMahon spared no expense, and that special last guest for the ECW show, TW, was none other than Abraham Washington himself. So you already knew that some ECW wrestlers were going to make an appearance here. Shelton Benjamin made an appearance. Trent Beretta made an appearance. And Vladimir Kozlov made an appearance. What a wacky bunch of people to pick for the last Abraham Washington talk show. It made no goddamn sense. And another thing, TW, being that this is the last ECW show on Sci Fi TV, none of these storylines was going to project to SmackDown. None of these storylines was going to project to Raw. So this was the last nail in the coffin for storylines. So before we even talk about the main event in greater detail, so to speak, what say you about that? I mean, I remember that they never really talked about it. And again, like you said, they were really prepping for the NXT stuff. They weren't, this wasn't a celebration of the accomplishments of the 4 years of ECW on Sci-Fi. No. This was like,
4 years?
2006 to 2010 on Sci-Fi.
Wow.
So it was really here today, gone today, and these storylines meant nothing. It was like ECW, kick you to the curb. Let's go on to the next big thing. What say you, TW, about as a wrestler, you're not gonna get your storyline to be played out on, like I said, SmackDown or Raw.
It was weird. That whole segment was Shelton came out like screw you, and then
By the way, Shelton Benjamin again, 2010, 2021. Shelton Benjamin, it's the same thing. He's been a tag team champion before, but now he's in the Hurt business. So I got to give props to him.
He's another guy who left and came back, and when he first was coming back, got hurt. When they were first trying to bring guys back, when they were going live with the NXT stuff, and he's a talent, man. The cream rises to the top. I've always thought Shelton was good. I think Charlie Haas looked good, but wasn't as good, if that makes any sense. I love them as a team, the world's greatest tag team, whatever they were called. Them with Angle was awesome. But, again, it was a lot of cookie-cutter stuff because it was Edge with the Edge heads and it was Miz with the A-list. Like, they've done it time and time again, right? So, and now your boy Apollo Crews with his two dudes behind him. The
Nigerian royalty, Apollo Crews, I love it.
I've already stated I didn't really watch it because I didn't even know Christian was ECW champion. It's vaguely familiar to me now that we've talked about it, but again, because I just watched it. But it almost felt like did Shelton come out first?
With the Abraham Washington thing? Yeah, he came out first.
And then who came out second because they were going to fight? And then Trent Beretta and the other dude came out, also AEW. And then I was like, are these two about to fight each other? Now they're going to be a team against these two? And then Kozlov comes out.
Yeah,
it's not even enough people to have a six-man. And who's the teams? And then when they hugged each other at the end of cleaning house, you're like, okay, which one's going to turn on the other one here? And then, like you said, it was never brought up again. It was all this stuff happened, and I think it was more than likely just so you remember all these guys. So when you see, because they talked about being free agents, so when you see them again on SmackDown or Raw, you're like, oh, those are the ECW guys, as if people that watch ECW weren't the diehards that watched everything. There's no one watching ECW that doesn't also watch Raw and SmackDown. There's plenty who watch Raw and SmackDown and do not watch ECW and will not know who the hell they are when they come on there, other than Shelton, who's already been there, and Goldust and guys like that. But these Trent Beretta and the other guy, which one's in AEW now?
Trent Beretta.
And then Tracy something? Not Tracy. I don't know. Whatever the hell his name is. But they were good, and they won the 2010 Tag Team of the Year with being in ECW, which is probably a work, but nonetheless. But it just felt rushed and like, fuck it. You're standing here. You go out there, too. You go out there, too. Oh, well, you're a tag team. You go out there.
This is the way I look at it, TW. They were at the catering. They had a sandwich in their mouth, and somebody told them, go to the ring and do something with the Abraham Washington Talk segment and, have fun with it. And that's the way it went. So, again, I don't know what happened to Abraham Washington after the ECW went out of business again for the second time, but he wasn't around after that. Tony Atlas, again, he praises Vince McMahon and to the point where, again, like you said, he had tough times in his personal life, and Vince McMahon shows loyalty and gratitude, and he will try to help out any way he can. And I guess you could say, TW, let's talk again because you love NXT. Now, I don't want to get into I don't want to talk a long time, but remember the first season, the first 2 seasons of NXT in comparison to what we see on Wednesday nights, or if it's going to move to Tuesday nights, it's night and day. NXT in the first 2 years on Sci-Fi was Star Search or America's Got Talent, and it sucked. But But the only thing that was good about the first season was the chemistry of Miz and Daniel Bryan. That was the only thing that worked because everybody was cheering for Daniel Bryan. Do you have any memories or recollections of that first ever NXT season before we talk about the main event?
And again, this is coming from behind the fourth wall's eyes to me because it felt half shoot, half script. Mm-hmm. It felt like a hazing. It felt like a public hazing on live TV, and I believe Miz with him, right?
Was that
Miz and Daniel Bryan?
Yeah, Miz was the mentor.
Jericho was with somebody, and Jericho was the polar opposite.
Jericho was with Barrett.
Jericho was like, rah, 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 and Miz was like, fuck you, you idiot. And I think both of them went too over the top both ways, right? Like, and I want to say Jericho was a face at the time when he was Wade Barrett's mentor because he would have been the guy to insult him and say, come on, idiot, you stupid idiot.
Wait, I'm trying to remember. No, because he turned on Edge because they had something together because that was the time they were doing that WrestleMania thing together.
No, that was Christian. But yeah, it felt like a hazing. Some of it was uncomfortable to watch. Some of it and Daniel Bryan to this day has always been someone who cannot hide his face. You know what's funny, what's like making him mad, by the look on Daniel Bryan's face, and some of it he looked uncomfortable, like, what the fuck did I do coming here, right? Like, I would say at that time, he was Bryan Danielson, right? Was the American Dragon Bryan Danielson, and then they made him Daniel Bryan. The crowd would chant Bryan Danielson for him. So for an indie guy to have the crowd chanting your indie name, that's pretty damn good. I would say modern day would be Will Ospreay. Is that the guy's name? Ospreay? Yeah. A guy who continually says he doesn't need to go here, to the U.S. and WWE specifically. Daniel Bryan was that guy then, where he didn't need the WWF. But unlike a Will Ospreay, who I think is from somewhere else, he's from England or somewhere over there, right?
England, Australia, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, New Zealand or something, yeah. Or no, that's Zack Saber's New Zealand. But either way, Daniel Bryan grew up a WWF fan. So coming here is more than money and the showcase of the whatever.
And went to Shawn Michaels either school or organization in Texas.
HWA, the HWA or whatever. But I think he was trained by Shawn. But that's the boyhood dream, is to be a WWF wrestler. So for me specifically, when I first started in 96, WCW obviously only lasted 4 more years. But there was a point right before they went out of business where they were just signing guys so the WWF couldn't, and vice versa. I would have took WWF every time. I don't even care if the money was less. That's the dream. I want to go where the IC title is. I want to go where Ultimate Warrior was. I want to go where Bret Hart was, Shawn Michaels. As much as I like the NWA in hindsight, it's still not home. Home is New York.
But TW, in 10 years, people are going to say, I want to go to the organization where Cody Rhodes brought it to prominence. I want to go where MJF is. I want to go where Hangman Page is.
To prominence, it'll be in spite of Cody Rhodes. Another dumb thing he does. He does this, I'll never wrestle for the title
doing that. I just like doing that reflection.
He does an interview saying, it'd be an easy heel turn. I'll turn heel, and then I'll go for the title, and then everyone will hate me. Hey, motherfucker, keep some shit under wraps. I hate how nonchalant, and I'm not the old school guy that needs kayfabe, needs to come back. It's too late. Can't put the genie in the bottle. But you don't have to tell everybody everything. It's ridiculous. And then Eric Bischoff had the nerve to say he could be the next John Cena? What? In what respect? He's going to make a Firehouse movie?
You live and die by social media and Twitter, TW. That's where that's the lifeblood. That's the lifeblood of wrestling. It's the Twitters and the social medias and the Facebook fan pages, because it breathes life into things that we can debate about, get heated about, get trolled by. So it works. But does it equate to ratings? No, it doesn't, because wrestling's been on the downtrend of the ratings part, but it's on the uptrend of trolling. So I love that sentiment exactly. That's the way I look at it. So let's close out and the one thing before even the main event we could talk about, their general manager was a woman that I forgot who it was.
The drunk Tiffany, the one who got fired from Impact because she got drunk driving. That was Tiffany.
That was
she was with Drew McIntyre.
Whatever her name was, she was the general manager of ECW. Like, you know, that just didn't make no sense. It was stupid. It did not fit with the mold of ECW. And of course, you know, we could always debate about the values of general managers. William Regal, right now in 2021, is the perfect general manager. He's there when you need an announcement, he's there.
He's Jack Tunney.
Right. When you need a match made, he's there. So it's not about being that, you know, heel general manager where you intricate yourself into a storyline as the top, you know, for a top babyface to have, and he's the antagonist. You don't need that. We've been there, done that. He's just a even keel, you know, objective general manager that doesn't take any side. He just says what's best for NXT. That's what I love about it.
And what's right.
Yeah, what's right.
Inevitably, he takes the side of right, which is always the face's side. But he gives heels.
It makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense, though. But now, Tiffany...
But here's funny, because this is the one moment where something happened where I thought, okay, especially because it's the last episode, they've got nothing to lose. Mm-hmm. They're going to do something very ECW. Zack Ryder comes out, attacks Christian. Mm-hmm. Christian puts him through the damn garbage can. And then Rosa Mendez attacks Christian. Mm-hmm. Christian turns around. What happens in old ECW? Rosa Mendez goes to a garbage can.
Yes.
Instead, Tiffany runs out like Batgirl, slides in the ring, hoping it was going to be a Titus O'Neil slide, but it wasn't. Kills her. Absolutely kills her. And then throws her out of the ring, and Mendez is on the floor holding her stomach. And I'm like, I'll bet she's really hurt because the way she folded when she landed from the hair toss. Mm-hmm. And then told her and Zack Ryder to get out of there. But that's when I thought, it's time to end it, because Francine would have been powerbombed off the top rope through 3 tables. And Rosa probably could have took that bump.
And plus, an ECW cat fight, you need to see asses. You need to see...
you almost saw it.
No, you know, but you're supposed to be scantily clad, dressed. You're supposed to have the thigh-high skirts where you can see the G-strings. That's what you're supposed to. That's the traditions of ECW that we did not get. And of course, Tiffany was not the perfect GM for this. This was a slap in the face. And again, we could talk about...
They did give us Kelly, though.
That was nothing.
Stripper booth.
That was nothing. That was nothing. I was not impressed with that, and I'm an ECW mark. But Christian being the last champion, defending his title against Ezekiel Jackson, and Ezekiel Jackson is a good example of maybe what could have been if he was, you know, if he was guided right. Because I don't even remember him in Lucha Underground. I remember him vaguely in TNA Impact Wrestling for like a week, a cup of coffee and a handshake, and that's it. So. Not even a hot dog. That's how fast he was in TNA. But Ezekiel Jackson, maybe he didn't. This is being the fan here, TW. Maybe you could agree or disagree. Maybe he listened to the wrong people, did not get the right advice to propel his career to at least be a mid-card player. What say you about Ezekiel Jackson?
Or we can go with my good man, Irish Bobby Clancy's world-famous quote. It's not really world-famous, but it's going to be Magnificent 7 famous.
Okay.
It looks like $1 million, and then the bell rings. Some people just don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
Have it. And getting back to Peyton Royce, she might look good. Mm-hmm. She doesn't sound good. I'm not, this isn't to rip on her. But she can do this move great. She can do that move great. And she can do this move great. But if you don't know how to put them together and make a great match out of it, you're not as good as you think you are. And so I always thought Ezekiel was a little quiet. Like if you pay attention to him in this match, looking around for cues or what's next or whatever, which is fine. That means he's teeing up on cues and knowing what, you know, pacing or whatever, but that means someone else called it for him. And I was watching him and I'm like, man, whatever happened to this guy? And ironically, we kind of breezed past him. The other guy that I thought, because I think he ended up, maybe went to ESPN or Fox, Ezekiel, or, Abraham Washington. Whatever happened to him?
I have no idea.
Like, that guy was meant to talk on wrestling. Like, he could have been we could have had a holy trio, the unholy trio of Teddy Long, Slick, and Abraham Washington, but he just didn't stick around. And I think when ECW was done, he was done. They didn't use him on anything else after that. He was just gone.
Yeah, he was gone.
And he was a wrestler, right? Because he was a big dude.
Yeah.
And then you know who else was there on commentator was Impact's Josh Matthews and Byron Saxton. I had no idea he's been there 11 years.
He was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy how many people like I was driving yesterday thinking to myself, it's been a year and a half since I went to this concert. And I was like, a year and a half. Like, it feels like last week. And it was a year and a half ago. And I'm like, man, don't blink. And then you watch this, and it's 11 years and a month ago. And you're like, it's amazing, A, how many people are still around. B, how many people are in AEW. Again, this is for you, Travis. We're not going to just sign a bunch of WWF cast-offs. We're going to create wrestlers. We're going to be new stars. Yeah, okay.
They're doing both. What are you talking about? They're doing both.
Another guy on this show that's on, besides Trent Beretta, another guy on this show that's on AEW, Lance Archer. Thank you very much. And then Matt Hardy, he's a mentor. He's on there. Chris Jericho's a mentor. He's on there. Dustin. There's so many people. And again, if you're listening to Magnificent 7 AEW superfans, I don't have a problem with them signing WWE guys. It makes sense. I have the problem with them saying they're not going to sign them like it's bad produce, and the second they can sign somebody, they do. The second. And we all know Tony Khan's trying to get Brock. He's trying to get Goldberg. He's trying that whatever the hell her name is.
Yeah, John Cena.
Button. Oh, yeah. If John Cena goes there,
you're going to see me with an AEW John Cena t-shirt.
If you don't see me with a Sting one, you definitely ain't going to see me with a John Cena one. So if Sting I've tried to watch for Sting. It's terrible. I can't do it. It ain't for me. It might be for you guys. It ain't for me. Then I just noticed something today or yesterday.
What's that? Okay.
Darby Allin spells his last name all in. I never noticed that until yesterday.
Yeah.
Is that on purpose?
No, that's been his ring name for years.
But he probably was doing all in as the gimmick.
Yeah, I guess. Well, he's a skateboard punk, like a jackass. But anyway,
backyard wrestler. You said it wrong, but yeah, okay.
Tomato, tomato. But anyway, the funny thing here is the official last ECW champion is Ezekiel Jackson. And again, in my head, if I'm Ezekiel Jackson, I'm like, this motherfucker Vince McMahon cancels ECW on me. I get a belt and I can't do nothing with it except take it home and maybe have it, appraised or, in my trophy case. I can't do nothing with a belt. I'm a heavyweight champion. I can't do shit with it.
I got another take on that.
What's that?
I'm your champion for the last few months. I do this heartfelt speech about what ECW means to me, and then I can't even keep it at the end of the damn show. I got to lose it?
You could go that way, too. I mean, it's just so funny that
win the belt on the last ECW show?
What?
I'm ECW World Champion on the last Paul Heyman ECW show?
Rhino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the last show.
Mm-hmm.
That's why this happened. It's ending the exact same way the first ECW ended.
Well, the last pay-per-view, it was Rhino, but he kept it until the doors closed. This was This is legitimately the last show, so they wanted to end it.
I thought he won it on the last show, and then there was no more ECW.
No, I mean they did a couple of months of house shows, and then he toured on TV with it and all that stuff. But this was the difference here is Ezekiel
over. Yeah, it's it.
It's over for him. It's over. It's just so funny, TW. So
still gets to put it in his credentials, though. It's in his Wikipedia.
No,
ECW World Champ.
But that is true. But that belt was so disgusting. I hate it.
It's horrible.
You wouldn't have bought that belt. You would have bought that belt.
I like the ECW belt, but I don't like Taz, so I don't want it for that reason. So
I get you.
I think you can still buy it on the shop too.
No, but to be fair, the Bobby Lashley ECW belt was nice. If you wanted to,
one Mark Henry had first, right? The one that Christian just lost. Yeah,
it's kind of like,
and I think they made it bigger because of Mark Henry. That's why they made it so gaudy.
It was so, yeah. That's the good word, gaudy. I never liked that silver black. It was too big for it. They tried to do the WWE tag team titles or WWF tag team titles and put it there. They should have just resurrected the tag team titles and just put ECW over with a plating. And then I would have said,
Flair was told that the one that's bleeped out is the tag belt.
Yeah, they should have done that for Ezekiel Jackson or Christian. So, TW, what say you about seeing this episode of ECW's final episode from 2010 and seeing half the roster of ECW still wrestling and getting a check from AEW or still contributing some way, shape, or form in this business?
I always think that's awesome, and it's funny because this episode is kind of like, there's two sides to everything, right? So we all hate when we're watching a TV show and they cancel it and don't give you an ending, right? And obviously this is a little different than a TV show, but you said it earlier, there's storylines. This was an example of just pulling the plug and not even having one more show, right? Like, it did nothing for us. It gave us no closure. It really was just serving as a prelude to the NXT, a filler until NXT premiered, which it would have almost been better. It was weird that they told you it was the last one, right? They should have just done it and then say, oh, by the way, next week it's going to be NXT instead of this shit. And then you would have just thought, you're going to watch this on the WWE.com, whatever. Because remember, you used to be able to watch shit on the internet.
Yeah.
So I thought WWE Bites or whatever.
Bite this.
Yeah. So I thought almost you're begging me not to watch it when you're telling me this is it. It's the last one ever, and not saying you should watch it because it's going to be awesome because we got this, that, and the other thing. Instead, they're like, we're having this match, we're going to have that, but by the way, NXT's coming next week, and you're just like, this is depressing, but I think when I watch it, I think, actually I thought something, and you immediately erased it from my mind, so I'm going to say why I don't think it anymore, but I thought, can you imagine if they would have just did FCW guys on ECW instead? So you'd have had your Seth Rollins and all those guys that were down there in the beginning, Ricky Steamboat's kid, have those guys on TV every week instead of ECW, but call it ECW. But you said it best. It was doomed to fail because it was never going to be ECW. It'd almost be like just owning the letters.
Yeah.
But, they could have, FCW would have been perfect. Florida Championship or...
But anyway, other than CM Punk being shielded from the ECW stink...
Right.
And the name NXT saved Daniel Bryan. The name NXT saved Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, because the stain of ECW did not travel with them. So they got a fresh start, a fresh look. So they can be. So Daniel Bryan can main event WrestleMania 30. So Roman Reigns can be the face of WWE for the last 6 years.
Would you agree that they meant well doing it? I didn't hate it in the beginning. I didn't think it was ECW, but I didn't hate it in the beginning because it was all new people. But once they started adding, Big Show being the worst of all, but Big Show, Mark Henry, Kurt Angle, all those guys going there, because those were all A guys. It wasn't like the floundering, like you said, and they went there to give us some star power, so probably that it didn't get canceled. But Christian made sense going there. Christian is on par with Finn Balor going back to NXT. Like, he brings something to it because he's built like those guys. Mark Henry should crush all of them other than Ezekiel. Kurt Angle should crush all of them. Big Show obviously should crush all of them. So you send these guys down there. Bobby Lashley was kind of up and coming, so he worked there. But they immediately put him on Raw or SmackDown, right? Like, he wasn't on ECW long. So they used it for what it was for, a springboard for him. So I think once they started diluting it with WWF guys, like the WCW versus NW or WCW versus WWF feud, to me, started shit in the bed when they added Angle and Jericho turned.
Yeah, when Austin and Angle turned.
Austin and Angle, like, no. Now it's just WWE versus WWE at this point.
Correct.
So
well, when Big Show...
They ruined ECW when they made it not be the young guys and threw these other guys down there, which I got why they did it, but it immediately made everyone that wasn't anybody yet still nobody.
Right. When Big Show won the title, I said, fuck ECW. When Vince McMahon won the ECW title, I said, fuck ECW.
Didn't know that happened either.
I did. So
the ECW and WWF champion?
Yes, he was. With that being said,
Vince figure in this room.
Yeah, you should. You should get the Vince ECW Championship action figure. I don't
find it.
You got to find it, or even the WWF Championship figure. He has to have one. So that is your mission for the Wall of Wonder right there. But with that, Reflectionites, we say goodbye to ECW the right way.
Flush.
But that has been the episode 132 of the PWR podcast here on the PWR Networks at podbeam.com. So TW, we're getting closer to St. Patrick's week. We know you're going to be drunk and you're going to be MIA for a couple of days. So TW, give out those socials, give out what you're going to be eating, what you're going to be drinking for the Dum Dum Duos and the idiots for us.
Well, we've been on hiatus for the Dum Dum videos, Dum Dum and Idiot videos, but I think I might have told you last week the one we're doing soon, the fish.
Yeah, I heard about the fish.
That's disgusting. But we got so many things that are just sitting there waiting to do them, but just haven't had a chance. You know, the bars are still closed here. They're open, but they could only be open until 10 p.m. So now, instead of getting together before the bar and doing these dumbass things and then going to the bar afterwards to wash them out with alcohol, basically we got to go to the bar at 6 o'clock so we can hang out for 4 hours and sing karaoke, which they took that from us too. Now they're open till 11, so I think pretty soon we're going to get going back up on them. That's the Dum Dum Duo and an Idiot on YouTube. Big Ray is making us a logo. That's awesome of him. Another guy's put music to the logo, so we're going to have a little logo on our video with the song.
That's nice. Very nice.
But our show is PW Reflection is the Twitter for that. Travis, why I keep putting you over at Nuts and Volts PW. That's Nuts and VOELTZ PW, as in penis whipped. Big Ray is at Big Ray Hernandez. I have at Tommy119, which is the one I get more insulting on Twitter with that one, and Instagram's Tommy119. And then at the Tommy Wonder is the one where I'm a little nicer on the Twitter. Snapchat, I believe, is also Tommy119. Our good man, JB, still missing in action, is at P1JB. And then the host of the domain, our man Big Vito, he's bigvitobrand.wixsite.com. And his Patreon is patreon.com/thebigvitobrand.
And you can find me on my Twitter at PWHustlePROF. That's PWHustleProf. And, of course, find the man, the king of the reactions, A-Track Round the Dirt of the City at A-Track Dastardly. And, of course, the man with the documents. He could tell you about Joe Biden. He could tell you about Gavin Newsom. He could tell you about Donald Trump. He could tell you about Jeffrey Epstein. Why are they all connected? Find out on the Infinite Fringe.
What about the guy in Winnipeg?
What about him?
Worse than Epstein. The guy in the Bahamas from Winnipeg?
What's his
Fashion
name?
mogul guy? Oh, man, it's called Unseemly. It's on the Discovery Plus. Oh, the guy's brutal. 50 years he did it. 50 years he was raping these girls and doing stuff to them, and his business covered it up. I'm telling you, I'm going to remember his name next week. Nygaard?
Neidhart?
Nygaard. Nygard. And he was a clothing, fashion guy. Looks like Oprah did a thing on his house in Bahamas. Rich and the Famous did a thing on his house. And this dude is he's in Winnipeg in jail right now, waiting to be extradited to the U.S., New York, for all his crimes. Worse than Epstein.
And he deserves to be extradited so we can kick his ass. But anyway, we're not going to be available next week, TW. You know why? Because we're going to take a week hiatus because we are going to celebrate St. Patrick's Day the right way. Well, St. Patrick's Week the right way. We're going to get drunk in our own houses. So next week will be a best of. Well, I'm going to ask Big Ray to get, to show the Big Vito Whites one of our best episodes from the PWSL Networks at podbean.com. But the week after Dawn of Destruction, it will be the best and worst moments of WrestleMania. Yes, the way to close out March, the road to WrestleMania. TW and the Professor will give our best and worst moments of WrestleMania. We can talk about the best WrestleMania, WrestleMania 3. We can talk about the worst WrestleMania, WrestleMania 27. You don't know where we're going to go, but we're going to go boardroom style. And with that being said, I'm the Professor. That's the king of the Dum Dum Duo idiots. That's the king of the Iron Stomachs, king of the nighttime world. TW saying good night and see you next time, Reflectionites.
Gotta get me a
That is a stupid thing.
There we go. Collect.
I hate ads. I was trying to make a toilet flush. but it didn't work because YouTube's a greedy son of a bitch. Oh, there's a skip ad. Here we go.
I'm still recording here.
I know. That's the ECW. WWE ECW.
Good night, Reflection Nights. Our audio department really sucked that time.